In the section number 8, we'll be implementing the frontend part of our application. In this section, we are going to take a look at the creating UI layout, writing a scripts to perform HTTP requests using Knockout.js library, and finally styling our views. In this video, we'll focus on starting with creating our layout, and it means that we'll configure the ASP.NET Core MVC app and we'll start with creating a template. Alright, as you can see, I have already copied here a few files, and basically if you were to create a new MVC application using the .NET CLI, you would see this file in a basic MVC template. So what do we have here? At first we have these Bower configuration files, and Bower basically is package manager. So within my Bower JSON, I have a dependency to jQuery. This is all that we'll need for now. And we also have the dependency to this directory where we set we would like to keep our libraries. So when you open the Bower.io webpage, you will see how you can install it using the npm. So for this section, you will need the Node.js and npm installed, and then you can install Bower. And once you have Bower installed, you can actually add these dependencies to the Bower JSON and basically install them using the provided CLI. So let's start with our Bower installation, and basically you will need to type Bower install, but since I'm using some legacy version here, I will just provide my full path to the Bower and just type install. And as you can see, it installed the jQuery into my www root lib. So I can see that here in my www root lib, here is my jQuery folder. Alright, the next thing that we want to do is to actually install two packages to our API project. So we'll host our template within our API. We don't want to create another project especially for this part. So let's just get back into our API and let's add at first a package called static files. So we just type .NET add package, and it will be Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.static And this one will allow us to actually return all of these files used within www-root for our views. So that's the first package. And another one, we'll call it build bundler minifier. So let's just type .NET add package build bundler minifier. And this one, as the name states, will be responsible for the minification of the scripts or CSS and so on. So let's just call it .NET Restore, and yeah, we are good to go. So in our startup class, I will just here add this new using. So let's type app.use static files. This one is required. And now we can create our views. So let's say that we would like to have a new controller. Let's just call it the home controller. And of course, derived from our controller base class. Let's put here a routing attribute, and we'll just say that we want to actually return a view for just this empty URL without a specified endpoint. And within this controller, we want to have a single action. Let's just call it iActionResult of index, and let's just return a view like this. Now we need to actually set up our views. So within our API project, let's just create a new folder, and now just call it the views. And here, at first, we'll need to create two files. So at first, let's create a new file, and that will be the CS.html file, which supports the Razor engine for actually creating templates using HTML and C# code. So the first one we could call view imports.cshtml, and this one will actually allow us to use some special tag helpers that ships with the latest version of ASP.NET. So we just want to type using Kubo API as our namespace, and then we can add this tag helper, and we want to say that we want to use all the tag helpers within the Microsoft ASP.NET Core MVC tag helpers namespace. Okay, now let's create another required file. So let's just call this one a view start. And within view start, we can actually define where is our template. So we'll say that our layout or a template, so we'll just use this layout keyword here, will be just a layout. And with underscore, we are basically have this convention for marking the partial files. So Now we can create our new shared folder here. So let's just add this shared folder, and within our shared folder we'll have our layout file. So just create a new file, layout CS.html, and let me paste this one file that I have already prepared here, and we'll discuss it in a minute. So just put it there. And finally, let's get back into our views. Here we can create a new folder, let's call it a home folder, and within a home folder we can create our new index.cs.html. So this one will be actually this view that we defined here, so that the name matches. And let's try to actually run our app now and see if it works. So basically when I type .NET build, you will see that there will be this bundler minifying our site or CSS file, and we can define those within this bundle config JSON. Here we will define the path that we would say within our www root CSS site CSS. We would have our, for example, CSS file, and below we would have our script, and the bundler would take these files and would actually minify them and just put them in the same directories using this min in their names. So that's how easy it is to actually minify your files and bundle them using the ASP.NET Core and some external library. So let's see if our application works. Let's type .NET run, and now we could actually go to our localhost 5000, and as you can see we have our basic template working. Here I'm using the Materialize CSS. So Materialize CSS is a CSS framework that actually supports material design that comes from Google, and this is one of the most popular designs nowadays. So we'll be using this Materialize CSS framework for the material design, of course in a very basic version for our application. And here within our layout CS.html we define the following things. At first you can see we have some special helpers or tag helpers where we could specify, for example, environment name. So in that scenario, if we set our environment variable to development, we could easily switch between, for example, full CSS file and minified version of the file. So here we would just like to use our Materialize CSS and also our custom site CSS. And below the same applies to the scripts. So for our development purposes, we could have the full version of our JavaScript files, and here we could have our minified version. And here we just have our navigation bar, and this class comes from the Materialize CSS template. And finally we have this container where we will actually keep our index or other views, and this code to render body that is required by the Razor. So let's say we will type here just a hi, and let's refresh our page. So as you can see, this is where our index.html or CS.html file is rendered within this render body invocation using Razor template, and within our container defined in our HTML file. And this is how we can actually get started with using both the ASP.NET MVC Razor templating engine with some scripts and bundling unifier and a Bower JSON and a Bower library. And now we can proceed with actually creating logic within JavaScript to actually support our API, and finally go on and style our view. In this video you saw how to get started with a typical ASP.NET Core MVC app, how to install the required dependencies, how to configure the bundle minifier, and how to set up the views so we could actually create a new template.